Welcome to BeFM Drama, where we turn great works of English literature into gripping radio. I'm your host, Joshua Cornwell, and this week we're bringing you our 5-part adaptation of The Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton, a classic Sherlock Holmes detective story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Charles Milverton is a hardened professional criminal, a seasoned blackmailer whose business model involves securing the most embarrassing documents he can, and then threatening their owners with socially damaging public scandal by releasing them unless they agree to pay him enormous sums of money. Holmes's current client is one of the many women who have fallen victim to Milverton, her marriage and future threatened by the letters he has stolen. Holmes has tried to reason with the criminal, but Milverton still demands more than his client can pay. Now the detective has turned to a new plan, a daring and criminal nighttime burglary of Milverton's house. His friend and companion, Dr. Watson, has just insisted on accompanying him, threatening to reveal the detective's plan to the police if he does not agree to let him come. Join us now as we return to Victorian London and to Part 3 of The Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton here on BeFM Drama. Holmes paused at my unexpected outburst and looked at me as if he'd never seen me before. My announcement that I would join him on his foray into criminal burglary had clearly taken him by some surprise.
You can't help me.
How do you know that? You can't tell what may happen. Anyway, I've made my resolution. Other people besides you have self-respect, you know, and even reputations. Holmes looked annoyed, but then his face cleared, an affectionate smile spread on his lips, and he slapped me warmly on the shoulder.
Well, well, my dear fellow, so be it. We have shared this same room for some years, and it will be amusing if we ended up sharing the same cell. You know, Watson, I don't mind confessing to you that I have always had an idea that I would have made a highly efficient criminal. This is the chance of my lifetime in that direction. See here.
He took a neat little leather case out of a drawer, and opening it, he withdrew a number of shining metal instruments.
This is a first-class, up-to-date burgling kit with nickel-plated jemmy, diamond-tipped glass cutter, adaptable keys, and every modern improvement which the march of civilization demands. Here, too, is my dark lantern. Everything is in order. Have you a pair of silent shoes?
I have some rubber-soled tennis shoes.
Excellent. And a mask?
I can make a couple out of black silk.
I can see that you have a strong natural talent for this sort of thing. Very good. You make the masks. We shall have some cold supper before we start. It is now 9:30. At 11 we shall drive as far as Church Row. It is a quarter of an hour's walk from there to Appledore Towers. We shall be at work before midnight. Milverton is a heavy sleeper and retires punctually at 10:30. With any luck we should be back here by 2 with the Lady Ava's letters in my pocket.
Holmes and I put on our dress clothes so that we might look like two theater-goers walking homeward. In Oxford Street, we picked up a hansom and drove to an address in Hampstead. Here we paid off our cab, and with our greatcoats buttoned up, for it was bitterly cold, and the wind seemed to blow through us, we walked along the edge of the heath.
This is a business that needs delicate treatment. These documents are contained in a safe in Milverton's study, and the study is in the anteroom of his bedchamber. We are in luck that, like all of these stout little men who do themselves well, he is a heavy sleeper. Agatha, that's my fiancée, says it is a joke in the servants' hall that it's impossible to wake the master. He has a secretary who is devoted to his business and never budges from the study all day. That's why we're going at night. Then he has a beast of a dog which roams the garden. I met Agatha late the last 2 evenings, and now she locks the brute up so as to give me a clear run. Ah, there is the house, the big one on its own grounds. Let's move through the gate. Now, to the right among the bushes. Perfect. We should put our masks on here, I think. You see, there's not a glimmer of light in any of the windows, and everything is working splendidly.
With our black silk face coverings, which turned us into two of the most ridiculously suspicious-looking figures in London, we crept up towards the silent, gloomy house. A sort of tiled veranda extended along one side of it, lined by several windows and 2 doors. Holmes pointed.
That's this bedroom. See the door to the left, the one that opens straight into the study. It would suit us best, but it is bolted as well as locked, and we would make too much noise getting in. Come round here. There's a greenhouse which opens into the drawing room.
The place was locked, but Holmes removed a circle of glass and turned the key from the inside. An instant later, he had closed the door behind us, and we had become felons in the eyes of the law. The thick, warm air of the conservatory and the rich, choking fragrance of exotic plants took us by the throat. He seized my hand in the darkness and led me quickly past thick banks of shrubs which brushed against our faces. Holmes had a remarkable ability, carefully cultivated through practice, of seeing in the dark. Still holding my hand in one of his, he opened a door, and I was vaguely conscious that we had entered a large room in which a cigar had been smoked not long before. He felt his way around the furniture, opened another door, and closed it silently behind us. Putting out my hand, I felt several coats hanging from the wall, and I understood that I was in a passageway. We moved along it until Holmes gently opened a door upon the right-hand side. Something rushed out at us, and my heart jumped into my mouth, but I could have laughed when I realized it was only a cat. A fire was burning in this new room, and again the air was heavy with tobacco smoke. Holmes entered on tiptoe, waited for me to follow, and then very gently closed the door. We were in Milverton's study, and a doorway on the opposite wall showed the entrance to his bedroom. It was a good fire, and the room was illuminated by it. Near the door I saw the gleam of an electric switch, but it was unnecessary, even if it had been safe, to turn it on. At one side of the fireplace was a heavy curtain which covered the bay windows we had seen from outside. On the other side was a door that connected to the veranda. A desk stood in the center, with a wheeled office chair faced in shining red leather. Opposite was a large bookcase, with a marble bust of Athene on the top. In the corner, between the bookcase and the wall, there stood a tall green safe, the firelight flashing back from the polished brass knobs on its face. Holmes crept across and looked at it. Then he snuck to the door of the bedroom and stood with his ear pressed against it, listening intently. No sound came from inside. Meanwhile, it had struck me that it would be wise to secure our retreat through the outer door, so I examined it. To my amazement, I found it was neither locked nor bolted. I touched Holmes on the arm, and he turned his masked face in that direction. I saw him start, and he was evidently as surprised as I was. He put his lips to my ear and whispered,
"I don't like it. I can't quite understand it. Anyhow, we have no time to lose."
"Can I do anything?"
"Yes, stand by the door. If you hear anyone coming, bolt it on the inside and we can get away as we came. If they come the other way, we can get out through the door if our job is done, or hide behind these window curtains if it is not. Do you understand?"
I nodded and stood by the door. My first feeling of fear had passed away, and I thrilled now with a keener zest than I had ever enjoyed when we were the defenders of the law instead of its breakers. The high object of our mission, the awareness that it was unselfish and morally right, the evil character of our opponent, all of it added to the sporting excitement of the adventure. Far from feeling guilty, I rejoiced and exulted at the danger. With a glow of admiration, I watched Holmes unrolling his case of instruments and choosing his tools with the calm, scientific accuracy of a surgeon performing a delicate operation. I knew that the opening of safes was a particular hobby of his, and I understood the joy which it gave him to be confronted with this green and gold monster, this metal dragon which held in its mouth the reputation of many good ladies. Turning up the cuffs of his dress coat, he had placed his overcoat on a chair. Holmes laid out 2 drills, a jemmy, and several skeleton keys. I stood at the center door, with my eyes glancing at each of the others, ready for any emergency, though, indeed, my plans were somewhat vague as to what I would do if we were interrupted. For half an hour, Holmes worked with concentrated energy, laying down one tool, picking up another, handling each with the strength and delicacy of a trained mechanic. Finally, I heard a click. The broad green door of the safe swung open, and inside I caught a glimpse of a number of paper packets, each tied, sealed, and neatly inscribed with names and dates. Holmes picked one out, but it was hard to read by the flickering fire, and he drew out his little dark lantern, for it was too dangerous, with Milverton in the next room, to switch on the electric light. Suddenly I saw him freeze, listen intently, and then, in an instant, he had swung shut the door of the safe, picked up his coat, stuffed his tools into the pockets, and darted behind the window curtain, motioning for me to do the same, and urgently whispering,
"Someone's coming!"
With that, we've come to the end of this episode of BeFM Drama. Holmes and Watson have been interrupted in the middle of their late-night burglary of Milverton's Hampstead home, and now rush to conceal themselves from whoever or whatever might be coming into the room. Join us again tomorrow evening, as we return in the nail-biting 4th episode of The Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton here on BeFM Drama.